Hello everyone, welcome to the free OpManager training session. Before we proceed with the training, I wanted to confirm whether you all can hear me and see the presentation as well. Please confirm by commenting an S in the webinar chat panel. Once we receive few confirmations, we shall proceed further with the presentation. Thank you for all your confirmations. Now let's proceed with the presentation today. Let me introduce about myself. I'm Sharath, technical support engineer associated with OpManager for a couple of years now. And for the next 1 hour of time, we will discuss about server performance and monitoring, and I hope I would be able to add some value on your day. So as all you know, this is a 5-part training session, and on the first week we have already covered with discovery and classification. And today we would see about server performance and its monitoring. And the next week, 16th of May, we would see about the network performance monitoring. And 23rd of May, we have got effective fault management and IT automation. And the last week, 30th of May, we would cover with network maps, reports, and the best practices for OpManager. You can visit www.opmanager.com/training.html to have a full view of this training schedule and look into the agenda as well. Server performance and monitoring is the topic for today. And before we jump into the presentation, let's have a brief of the agenda. Today we'll see about monitoring the device and the interface availability, monitoring the server's performance and what are the important metrics we have which needs to be monitored, monitoring your virtual server performance, what are the important metrics you've got on your virtual environment and what can OpManager help you to monitor those, creating a custom WMI monitor, script monitoring, and we would see some of the troubleshooting steps which would help you if you face any challenges on monitoring the server. So when we talk about monitoring the availability, we have got few protocols used by OpManager. Let's say for device monitoring, we use ICMP ping or TCP port check to check the availability, response time, and packet loss of a device. And we have a severity which can be noted as attention in yellow when a device misses one pole. A pole is nothing but your monitoring interval. So let's say, for example, you set a monitoring interval for a device as 5 minutes. So if the device doesn't respond on the first pole, we show as attention. And if it's consecutively misses 3 poles, meaning a continuously of 15 minutes, if a device seems to be down, we show it as trouble. And for 5 continuous poles of missing, we show as critical for the device availability. Same way, we have got interface status availability monitoring as up and down. We would be able to use the SNMP protocol for interface monitoring, and for services on the TCP port check, we use the TCP protocol to monitor its availability. And for Windows NT services from your Windows machines, we use WMI protocol. And for processes, we use WMI, SNMP, SSH or Telnet protocols to know about the status of the particular process. For files and folders which needs to be monitored on your Windows machines, we use WMI, and URL can be monitored with the help of HTTP or HTTPS protocol to know its availability and the response time. Moving on to the next is about monitoring the availability. So as we have seen already about discovery and classification, once the devices has been successfully discovered, you would be able to have those devices being displayed under the inventory. You've got all your devices being displayed like this, and whenever you click on a device, you would be able to find the availability time chart on the right side of the device snapshot page. You would be able to find the availability timeline and the dials for availability, packet loss, and response time. So monitoring the availability of the device, as we saw, we use ICMP ping or TCP port check. By default, you have an option of monitoring the device availability via ICMP, as you can see here. In case if your device are not enabled with ICMP, if it seems to be a demilitarized zone in any case, there you can change the ICMP protocol by edit device details and change them to TCP and provide the respective port number, and OpManager from now on would be able to check the availability of this port via TCP and let you know about the status. The next is about configuring the thresholds for packet loss and response times. So the packet loss and response time is very much critical when you are trying to monitor any devices on a WAN link. So if any packet loss happens or a response time seems to be so high, there seems to be a lag, and you can understand from there. You can configure the thresholds on that and you would be able to monitor them as well. So for configuring a particular thresholds for packet loss and response time, you have an option configure thresholds. Just click on them and set the threshold value in percentage, as you can see. So you can say once this particular threshold is being violated, then you would be able to have notified. The same way you've got for response time as well, which is in milliseconds. This can be done for an individual device by clicking just the configure thresholds above the dial. In case if you wish to do it for a bulk amount of devices or multiple devices, you can just get into settings, configuration, quick configuration wizard, and threshold settings. Here you have an option called availability monitors, where you've got response time and packet loss, where you can set the thresholds. Let's say I set the threshold as such, and I can just set the same threshold for multiple number of devices and save them. This is the way you can do it for multiple number of devices. Next is about configuring your uplink dependency. Uplink dependency comes into picture when you have a parent device. Let's say, for example, you've got a 32 port switch and the rest of the 32 devices behind that are all servers, and you have totally 33 devices on a particular environment, and you monitor all those in OpManager. So in case if the switch becomes problem or switch becomes down, all the 32 servers behind that would also be not reachable, and you would be able to have fired with so many alarms, about like 33 alarms would be received in OpManager stating the device down. In order to avoid all those, you can set a uplink dependency for a particular device. So then if that parent device is down, the child device would not get notified with an alarm stating its device down. You can set them for a device under inventory, select the particular device, edit device details, and you have uplink dependency. For this particular device, let's say I've got a router which is my parent device, I can set this right here. Next is about polling interval. As you all know, polling interval is about the monitoring interval of that particular device. How much time is a period you give for the OpManager to monitor the device is about the polling interval. You can have them default set right here as polling interval, and you can just change them under edit device details, monitoring minutes. So the minimum interval you can set for a device to be monitored is 1 minute, and less than that OpManager would not be able to go ahead and try monitoring them. The minimum amount is 1 minute. If you wish to set for an individual device, you can use this, or you have an option under settings, configuration, monitoring interval, and you have a default time set for a particular category. For servers and routers, we have got 5 minutes set by default, and in your environment, if you wish to monitor them every 2 minutes, you can set them as 2 minutes, or if you wanted to set them for 10 minutes, you can change them to 10 minutes and save. So from then on, all the servers which has been already added, and in future all the servers would have the monitoring interval as 10 minutes. So now let's move on to the availability statistics. So once the availability is being monitored with the help of ICMP or TCP, you would have a statistics which is given in detail. You would be able to find color codes in different ways to know about the statistics. As all you know, the green says up and red says down. The rest of them gives a detailed explanation right below the statistics box. And the gray one says on maintenance. When you try to schedule a device for a downtime and you need for a maintenance, you can just schedule a downtime which shows on maintenance. On hold is purposeful you make a device unmanaged, and dependent unavailable is the case where we saw you set a uplink dependency for a device, and if that parent device is down, that would be fallen into dependent unavailable category, and not monitored is such a place where that device is not monitored. Also, you have a clear picture of your outage history, so then any of the administrators or operators who log into the OpManager would be able to know what happened with the help of this outage history. Let me just switch over to the product and give you a clear picture on where it locates. Click on the availability dial and you would be able to provide it with all the down statistics. You have got all these down statistics and you can just change them as per your requirement or sort by the time. And about the outage history, you have the outage history right next to that, and you can just change them as per your time. So here, when I set for last 30 days, I've got many outage histories set here, and you can just edit the actions and set a reason for them. So then the next administrator or the operator who logs in would be able to find what is the reason behind this outage. Next is about monitoring your services. And the services, we use TCP service or Windows services can also be monitored. So TCP services is nothing but your port which has to be checked, or on the Windows services we have used WMI protocol to check the Windows services. Let me just switch back and help you out with few examples. So when you get into the device monitors, you have service monitors. Let's say I've got few monitors like DNS, MS SQL, which runs on 1433, web on 80, and these are the ports, and I would be able to have them monitored and check the status of that as well. So the purple one says the particular service is down and the green says it's up. You can add your respective monitor based on your environment just by adding a monitor, provide the name and the port number, and you will be able to monitor them. So this option scan during discovery would be helpful when this service monitor is added in common, and then you just have to have this particular service monitor automatically discovered whenever the device has been added. You can just go ahead and use the scan using discovery. So then whenever any service being added in future with this particular service would get automatically added. You can also have an option to set the threshold for your response times, and then you would be able to get them notified. So regarding the Windows service monitors, Windows service monitors would be fetched with the help of WMI protocol, and you have got few couple of monitors being associated right here: Manage Engine, OpManager, Manage Engine Service Disk Plus. All these Windows services have been monitored, and you can also have an option to set the threshold for them if it's unavailable for more than a time, or if it's been unavailable even for one time, if that to be notified. If it seems to be a critical one, that can be used. And option you have for a Windows service monitor is about restarting the service or restarting the server if that particular Windows service is unavailable. If the service seems to be down, you can initiate an action from the OpManager as restart the service or restart the server, provided you have given the administrative privileged credentials to discover this particular device. These actions will be performed with the help of OpManager itself. You can add any number of monitors for Windows services. It would automatically get fetched, and then you will be able to add them and start monitoring right then. Next is about monitoring the processes. Process monitoring is also very important in case to know about the exact CPU or the memory which that particular process holds. So in case there are so many processes running, and if there seems to be a CPU hike and you wanted to know which process holds that memory because or the CPU which is due to this hike, and then you would be able to get them monitored. If that seems to be a non-critical one, then you can go ahead and right away stop the process or kill the process right from OpManager itself. So you would be able to have a clear picture on the availability of the process as up or down, and you can also set thresholds for the critical process about its CPU, memory, and the instance count. And also you can create this process as a global template, and you can associate that template for multiple number of devices as well. Let me switch back to the product to help you out with the process monitoring. So whenever you add a device with the help of an SNMP protocol, you would have all the active processes running on that particular machine being discovered automatically, and it would show you the status of that particular machine and the process and the type. So if you wish to have an in detail monitoring of the process, then you have monitors and process monitors. You can have all the process which is running on the machine can be monitored. It would show you the status, the CPU utilized, the memory and the memory usage in bytes, and the total instances of that particular process running on the machine. So you can even edit to set the threshold to know about the CPU memory and instance count. If any of the values set here is violated, you would be notified with an alarm. The next is about the server performance monitoring. As all you know, whenever you try to configure a server, you would have that particular server being configured with a high performance metrics, say the hard disk or CPU or the memory or whatever you have that to be configured for a server would be obviously very high at the beginning, but later period of time, once the performance starts and the utilization of that particular service grows, there might be a chance of the usage of the disk or CPU, and then you would have to keep monitoring them very closely to know whether you have that particular resource to be allocated more or is that already being overloaded. So from that point of view, you can have the hard disk usage, say free disk space used or total utilization of the disk or disk speed or queue length, which can be monitored in parts of hard disk. And in parts of CPU, you have utilization, the privilege time or top processes by CPU, top processes by memory or total memory. All these performance metrics can be monitored in OpManager. So then you would have a clear picture as an administrator of the server to know how these device performs. Let me just get back to a server and then show you one. So just when you get into settings and monitoring, you would have all the list of performance monitors. You have all the protocols being displayed. You have all these performance monitors displayed here can be added for a device and you will be able to have them monitored. You have closely about 877 performance monitors available by default. You can use them based on your requirement. Also, you can just have them added on a device and see them just under the monitors. You would have all these detailed instructions or informations about this particular metric. When you click on the particular metric, you have a graphical representation, or you can also have a table view to know about the exact value at the last hold time. You can just take them as a PDF or an Excel, or even schedule this to be reported in your email as well. So you've got multiple monitors, like say as we spoke about CPU, disk, memory, or even any other monitors which you like to monitor can also be added to monitor a server performance. So once all these performance metrics have been monitored, you would have a report in handy. So then you would be able to use that for the audit purpose or to have a look at the trend of the particular server. You have an option to look into that with the help of server health reports, or if you wanted to check anything about your disk, you have disk forecast by usage and many other reports. So when we get into reports, health and performance, you have server health report where you would be able to have the particular server's health report in a complete way, where you've got the CPU memory and disk utilization, the availability, packet loss, and response time. All these important 6 metrics would be shown in a single report where you can edit this report as per your choice or the period, and you can just even schedule them or take them as PDF or Excel as well. When we talk about disk usage or disk forecast, we have a out of box report which helps you to forecast the disk usage of the particular server, where this would be helpful to know whether the disk is being utilized, overutilized, or it's allocated too much where it's not using so much of the disk. So let's say for example, I have got a device where its C drive is currently using 78% and it would reach the 80% of the disk space in this particular time, and the 90% would reach at this time and the 100% on the 11th of May. So from this report, an administrator can understand and he can take necessary actions before 11th of May to avoid the 100% growth of this particular C drive on this machine. So this would be completely helpful for an administrator to allocate the exact memory on the disk. Next, we would talk about the virtual environment and how does it helps for in OpManager to get that monitored. So we support VMware, Hyper-V, and Zen servers on the virtual environment. We also have either vCenter monitoring and ESX monitoring as well. Both we do support in virtual environments. So in virtual environment, the performance metrics like CPU ready time, wait, active memory, balloon memory, or all other performance metrics can also be monitored. And we also have hardware metrics where your sensors, power, temperature, voltage can also be monitored, and all these hardware metrics would be monitored with the help of the VMware API. We support Dell and HP vendors in terms of hardware monitoring. Let me just switch back to the virtual environment and show you an example of what other performance metrics we've got. So the VI web service monitors are by default associated to a device when it seems to be a VMware device. So you have multiple device monitors available under the VI web service category. So most of the important, say for example, 15 to 20 of the VI web service critical monitors would get automatically associated to the server when it has been identified as a virtual machine from VMware. So when we talk about the hardware monitors, you would have the hardware performance monitors can also be monitored as these. You have anything else can also be available, will be monitored with the help of the VMware API. So next is about VMware events. So any events happens on your virtual environment on VMware, say vMotion, which is the most common event happens on VMware. One VM would be migrated from one host to the other. That would be captured as an event and monitored in OpManager. Or any host connections or VM connections, a newly added VM or an existing VM which is powered on or off, or a VM is taken from one host which seems to be often, that can also be monitored in OpManager. You have the VMware events available. So you've got multiple events, say VMware powered off event or DRS powered on. So there are so many other VMware events available, and if you wish to add any new VMware events, you can just select the particular vCenter or the host, and you have additional VMware events from that particular machine can also be added apart from the one which is available in global. Any VMware events from that particular vCenter would be used, and you can just monitor them continuously. And about virtual reports, we do have an exclusive virtual reports available in terms, apart from the servers, we've got reports to identify the underutilized or over proficient resources. Also, we have a VM sprawl dashboard to check about the utilized resources of the virtual environment. Also, we've got virtual maps which were drawn automatically to know about the virtual environment's real picture. Then we get back to the reports and show you a few virtual reports now. When you get into reports, virtual server reports, we've got few reports like data store versus VMware VM mapping or VMware host mapping. So you would be able to have a clear picture about the data store and the VM devices, about the power status and the memory which is being utilized. Same way for the host as well, you have got the capacity and the data store respective with the host. If you wish to monitor any other performance metrics of a virtual environment, you feel free to create a new virtual report, name a new report, and you can select as per your choice. Either you want the report for a host or a virtual machine, and what is the exact performance metric you wish to take them as a report. You can select them. Let's say I want a balloon memory, or let's say a compressed memory need to be monitored as a report. I can select those devices and I can create a new report, and once this new report is created, all the virtual machines under VMware category can be taken as a report, and you will be able to have the performance metrics monitored. And now it's about the virtual maps. When you get into maps VMware, you would have a default map added whenever a vCenter is being discovered with the details of the vCenter IP address, the OS, the status, and the number of hosts of VMs and the total number of the monitored VMs and data stores as well. So when you click on the map, you would have a map automatically drawn and would show you a clear picture about the virtual environment. You have options to know about the relation between host VM or host to network, or even you want to add the host to data store and VM to data store, VM to network. All these options is available, and you can have them added to have a clear picture about the connection between those devices. Next is about application performance. As you see about the servers, we also support applications, and we have couple of monitors for your application servers. For MS SQL, we have got a bunch of monitors which can be monitored like SQL services, batch requests per second, and so on. And also we have got few MS Exchange monitors and MS Active Directory monitors like LDAP bind time, LDAP searches, and so on. So you have application monitors available under settings, monitoring application monitors. And for MS SQL, you've got a couple of MS SQL monitors by default. You can see there are closely about 50 plus monitors for MS SQL. And for Exchange servers, based on their version, you've got multiple number of monitors available. And for Active Directory, as the same way, LDAP search or LDAP writes, directory writes, and so on. There are so many monitors which can be monitored on the application part. And I would like to tell you, these polling interval and the threshold set for each monitors is as per the Microsoft best practices. So I might understand that the best practices might not applicable on your environment all the time, and if you wish to change the threshold for a particular monitor as per your environment, you can just have a check here, and then you can change the threshold value or the polling interval as per your requirement, and you can click on apply configuration, and you can select the devices on which this has to be effective. And when you do this way, these particular changes, whatever you do on the application monitors, will get effective right away on these selected devices. And in case if you want to retain the same threshold and the polling interval which is changed for the future MS SQL devices which is added, you can just save the configuration. So then this becomes saved, and any future MS SQL devices added would also get applied automatically with this threshold and polling interval. Next is about creating a custom WMI monitors. So there are so many default WMI monitors available. In case if that doesn't meet your requirement, you can create your own WMI monitors, and where you must know the exact admin privilege, WMI credentials, and the WMI class, the performance counter, and the instances from where you have to add the particular WMI monitor. And also you can add a custom dial for the performance monitors. Let me create one and show you to understand that better. You can just get into a device, WMI monitor, and you would be able to have all the classes listed down from this particular device, as I've got my WMI admin credential already been associated with this particular device. So once the WMI classes are loaded, you have all these WMI classes being loaded. Let's say I want a privilege time, or for example, let's say this is a printer server, and you would be able to have few information about the WMI monitors which is not available by default. Say total jobs printer or total pages printer. These are not something which is by default, where you can add as per your choice once you know the class counters and the instance for which you want them to be added. So for example, if you want privilege time, you can also have your privilege time added, or interrupt time or an idle time of that particular processor can also be added for the total instance. For my example, I can go ahead and add them, and once the polling starts, after 15 minutes of time, my poll would get initiated from this particular device. So this is for an individual device. You can also do the same for a global devices under configuration device template. You can select a device template, add a monitor, and you can just select WMI, and you can add a custom WMI monitor, providing the device name from where all the classes has to be fetched and the monitoring interval, and you would be able to have the classes being listed, and you can just go ahead and start adding all these monitors as per your requirement. Once it is added, you would have that particular monitor as displayed right here. You can just enable show dial option to have them displayed in this particular devices. Once it's applied from the device template, this can be applied to multiple number of devices, and you would be able to have a dial for this particular metric right here, as you can see this. Next is an interesting one called script monitoring, where you can write a script monitor for any performance monitor, where you, if that seems to be not available as a standard SNMP or WMI monitor. If you have a script written in any of the language, which is like VB script, PowerShell, Perl shell, or Python script, which means you have any script which can be run on a shell or a prompt is supported in OpManager. So for example, you have an option also to export or import the existing script templates available on one OpManager, and you can just import them on another OpManager installation. For example, you have an enterprise edition where you've got multiple number of probes, where you install a particular script monitor, or you have a script monitor on probe number 1 and you want the same script which needs to be executed in all other probes. You can just export them and import them right at anyway. You have a common forum page where we discuss about the custom scripts which has been given by the customers and which has been uploaded from the development team, where you can find that right here and you can download that and you can start using them. For example, let's take you want to monitor the expiry of the certificates on a server that cannot be achieved with the help of an SNMP or a WMI, where in case that can be achieved with the help of a script monitor, where I have got already a script written for expired certificates, and that can be used to monitor the last 120 days whether the script has been expired or not. Also, for another example, you have Windows Service monitors which has been already monitored in OpManager, and you have option only to go ahead and restart the service or restart the server. Where if you wanted to go ahead and stop the service by any chance, then you can write a script and you would be able to have them executed. So then if the device, if the particular Windows service is down, or if it's up, and then if you wanted to make them stop, you would be able to do that with the help of the script monitoring, where that cannot be achieved with the help of an SNMP or WMI monitors. Next is about monitoring your website URLs. So any URLs, either the internet or a global internet web applications, can be monitored in OpManager. Configure your thresholds for the URL response time. So the response time of the URL would give you a clear picture about the availability of the URL. So if the response time becomes too high, then you would be able to understand there seems to be a lag between the particular server and the reachability of the URL. So this important metric can also be monitored with the help of threshold. You can set a match content, and if that match content is available on that particular URL, that would be monitored and that would be notified through OpManager. Also, if any of the URLs are behind your proxy servers, you can configure your proxy server details, and OpManager would understand the proxy and it would monitor behind these proxy server settings which you set. Let me get back to URL monitors to give you an example. I've got one particular URL which is manageengine.com, which is monitored right in here. It would give me a clear status and the response time of this particular URL from the server and the total availability of that. So when you click on the monitor, you would be able to find the availability and you would be able to find the response time of that as well. You would have a graph for the response time with the selected time period, and the polling interval would be seen, and you would be able to have a clear picture about the response time. When we talk about the match content, you have an option to enter a string here, and you would be able to match this particular content on this website. If the word network is available in manageengine.com URL, then OpManager would get me notified on this particular word is available. The string is available on that. There are many websites where you want to monitor whether this particular string is available or if that is absent. If that particular string is not available, then there is something which has to be looked into. So you can use this match content and make sure you keep them monitored throughout. If any URL authorization details are required, you must provide your username and password for the authorization to monitor the URL as well. So as we spoke about the proxy server settings, that's available under settings, proxy server. You can enable, provide the proxy server name, port, username and password, and save them. From then on, OpManager would be able to monitor that particular URL behind this proxy details you provide. Next is about files and folder monitoring on a Windows machines. So you would be able to monitor the availability of the files and folders, and you can configure thresholds for a folder on its size and get notified whenever the size of the folder is exceeded. You can configure the filters based on the file extensions. Let's say a folder contains multiple extension file types in a folder, and you want to be monitored with only the txt file or pdf file or .log file, which is very important or critical to be monitored. You can filter them based on your file extensions. Also, you can configure thresholds for file size, file age, or even the count of the files, and set an alert to get notified whenever those values get exceeded. Also, you can perform your automatic checks on files and folders and trigger alerts whenever any modification happens. Let me just get back to the product to give you a picture on the files and folder monitoring. I've got a file being monitored in OpManager, say wrapper.log. So from the file path, and it shows me the status of the file, the size, the age, and the existence of the file, whether the file is available on the respective path given or it's not. So whenever you try to add a monitor, you would be able to have an option to provide the name for this file monitor, the path, the polling interval, and you have few options like file contains, file existence, file size, age, and modification. When we talk about file existence, you would be able to have option to alert if that is not monitored, or if it doesn't exist, or if it really exists you want them to be alerted. You can set your options as per your choice, and the size of the file, and even you can set your threshold based on the size of the file if that exceeds a certain value. Let's say I want a particular file to be monitored in MB, and if it violates more than 50 MB, then I want that to be notified. So you would be able to have the size of the file even get monitored, the age of the file in minutes, hours, or days, and if that particular file seems to be monitored, you can get them alerted. The another interesting feature on file monitors is about file contains. You have an option called log file agent, where you would have to download an agent for this log file monitoring. This file agent would be helpful in a particular place where you wanted to go ahead and have a particular string monitored on a log file. Let's say, for example, I have got a log file, and that would capture all the exceptions of the particular application which I run on. If I find any exception as a word called string called exception, and that need to be monitored, I can use the agent to get that monitored. So you just wanted to download the agent .msi file, and then you can just have to map that to the particular device which needs to be monitored, and you can provide a string. As we spoke, I provide exception. So on this particular wrapper.log, if any string says exception, that would be monitored, and OpManager would be able to alert me that there is a string called exception on this particular wrapper.log. The agent would be able to read line by line to search for the word exception and helps me to alert. So same way, the folder monitors, you've got a folder can be monitored. In my case, I've got the logs folder being monitored. I can just check about the size of the folder, the total file counts inside the particular folder, and the existence of that. So you have to go ahead with the same way, provide the name for the folder monitor, provide the path, and if you wish to include the subfolders, you can provide them, or you want to monitor only the files which is inside a folder and you do not want to have the subfolders included, you can just uncheck them at any point. And here you would have an option to monitor the existence, the size of the folder in the same way with KB, MB, and GB, and modification as well. As we spoke about the file filters, here the file name contains is a place where you can select all files to monitor all type of files inside the folder, or if you want them to be monitored with only the text and the PDF files, or any other extensions you want to monitor, you can provide only those file filters, those extensions in the file filter to get them monitored. So far we have seen about all the important metrics which needs to be monitored on a server, and now we'll move on to a troubleshooting tip, where in case this might be really helpful in any part where when you come across when a WMI monitor is not collecting a data. You have multiple WMI monitors being added in OpManager, and if that doesn't collect data, though the WMI credentials are passed in your network, and if that's reachable or pingable, but still then the WMI performance metric is not collected, there it might throw an error, say access denied or RPC server is unavailable. There might be possible reasons for the failure. Either the password which is provided or associated here for this device might be wrong, or it might have a typo. We have to check on that and modify them accordingly. Or the WMI account used in OpManager might have only a limited privilege, where OpManager cannot query that particular class and get the exact value, and that might be a reason. Or the other option might be the ports would have been blocked by the firewall, and op manager cannot read, or the device cannot be able to respond to us as the port has been blocked. The troubleshooting can be, you have a Windows management instrumentation tester, which is nothing but WBEM test, which is available in default in the Windows machines, and you have to provide the device name and the credentials you use in Op Manager, and just connect them. As in case here it's a local device, I provide nothing, or else you have go ahead and provide the particular IP address like this, and you can provide the username and password, and you have got to go ahead and connect. And you can test them just by querying that device by any common query. Say select star from win32 underscore processor, which would help me to understand about the CPU utilized on this particular device. So say CPU and show MOF would give me the load used on this particular machine for CPU. If this works, then obviously it means that it has a privileged credential and the password is correct and the port is also been open, so it should really work. If this doesn't work, an error might throw, as you can see, access denied or RPC server is unavailable. The remote procedure call is what OpManager uses to know about the details from the remote machine. And you can have a look at this particular KB article, which would give you instructions about what has to be done when you find RPC server is unavailable. So we have seen about what are the important metrics we have wanted to be covered on server, and also we have given you a troubleshooting tip on the WMI monitor. So if you've got further any queries, you can always have a look at youtube.com/opmanagertech videos and get subscribed. So any new videos related to the webinar or any how-to videos with detailed instructions, you would be able to get them notified. You have help.opmanager.com, which has step-by-step instructions with screenshots which will help you in configuring the product or any particular feature. You also have forums.manageengine.com/opmanager, where this is most of our technical discussion with the customers throughout the globe happens. So if any question arises related to OpManager, these three would obviously solve your question and give you an answer on that. If you still wanted to write to us, you can write to opmanager-support@manageengine.com, or you can dial us at the below number at any time to get help. I also gladly wanted to inform you that Gartner has recognized OpManager for its network performance monitoring and diagnostics Magic Quadrant the last year, 2017, and we're very happy to announce you all. And I would also invite all of you to join the next training, which is on 16th of May at the same time, where we would look about the network performance monitoring. And also, I would inform you that there is a user conference happening on San Francisco Bay Area in Pleasanton on 23rd and 24th of this month, and you can just get registered with the help of the link below. We would also post this user conference registration link in the chat, so you all can use them to get that registered and take part in it. Now we'll open up for questions, and give me about a minute, we will open up for questions. So product expert Venkata Anil is here to discuss about the interesting questions we have received today. Over to Anil now.
Hello everyone. Thank you for joining the session today. And we have, my name is Venkata Anil Kumar. I'm the product expert, OpManager. I've been associated with OpManager for past 6 years. And today we have very few interesting questions that were asked during the webinar. So we'll be discussing this during this Q&A and question and answer session. And let's get into the questions. And the first one, this is the most frequently asked question in support. by many customers. And the question is, domain controller is not discovered correctly and is shown up as server. So we use WMI protocol for monitoring a domain controller. However, it does require SNMP credential or SNMP configured to discover it correctly as domain controller. So if we have the domain controller discovered as server, so we need to associate a SNMP credential and perform a rediscovery of the server, so that it will be automatically discovered as domain controller and all the Active Directory monitors will be automatically added. And the next one, I have a WMI credential passed, but do not see any interfaces, active process, and installed software in OpManager in the server snapshot page. So basically, WMI, we use WMI for performance monitoring, and whereas SNMP is used for displaying or getting the active process and install software from the server, as well as discovering the interfaces for any Windows or Linux servers. And this is one of the most frequently asked question by customers. So which protocol do you recommend for monitoring a Windows server? So both WMI and SNMP have its own importance, all right? So it is strongly recommended to have WMI as well as SNMP both configured in the server and discovered in OpManager. So WMI has its own advantages over SNMP, where using WMI, you should be able to monitor the event logs, right? And whereas using SNMP, you should be able to additionally monitor the interfaces, the network interfaces, and its utilization, as well as you can also get the installed software and active process and other details. Whereas apart from SNMP, using WMI, you should be able to monitor the event logs, file and folder monitors, right, and Windows services. So both have its own advantages, all right. So it is strongly recommended to have both WMI and SNMP used for a Windows server monitoring. So this is this is the most common question we used to have till last. This is the most common question that we get in support. All right, how do we associate or how do we enable thresholds for packet loss and response time in bulk? All right, and this was the feature that is recently introduced. All right, in till previous versions, we used to have this manually set from the device snapshot page. So we have to access each device and associate the thresholds, all right, for response time and packet loss. And in the latest versions, we can do this in bulk for all devices. So all you need to do is you need to get into settings, configuration, quick configuration visit, and you have threshold settings. Here you need to go to availability monitors, and you can select the respective parameter that you want to set threshold for. So for example, let me select packet loss or response time. So let me just have the threshold set, and I'll just select the devices that I want to associate the threshold with, and I'll just save it. So this way the threshold will be automatically associated to the devices whatever we have selected, right, in that quick configuration visit. So this is how we can associate the thresholds in bulk for packet loss and response time for all devices in a go. And the next one, what applications can be monitored using OpManager? So OpManager can monitor only few applications like MS SQL, Exchange, and Active Directory. And if you If you'd like to monitor any other applications apart from these three, we have a plugin that can be installed on top of OpManager, which is the Applications Manager plugin. So Applications Manager plugin is dedicatedly for monitoring applications like JBoss, Tomcat, and other critical applications that are running in your environment. And this is one of other most frequently asked questions. How do we set up uplink dependency between the Hyper-V host and associated VMs? And as of now, the dependency cannot be set between the host and the VMs, all right, automatically. So if you want to set the dependency, we have to manually add the Hyper-V host as a dependent device for all the VMs, so that if the host is down, the VMs uh, will not be monitored and will not generate any alarms. And we are working on this feature, and it should be available in near future. And with that, we are we are at the end of the question and answer session, and I hope we have answered all your questions that you have asked during the webinar. And if you have any further questions, you can feel free to send us an email at opmanager-support@manageengine.com, and we'll reply back as early as possible. Thank you.